so aware of like, there's so much noise. I mean, it's New York. There's so much noise.
There's a lot. Yep. Okay.
What it is.
Good start. There is a. It's a noisy city.
Even in the park, it's just noise.
Then it is. There's a bunch of noise everywhere.
There's too many people. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, and you know what it is? Like, this is on the early side for us, right?
I know.
It's still
Not for
morning.
me, man. Not
it's still
for me.
Well, for me. Well, you have a kid.
A child.
So you know. First of all, I should do an introduction so people know
Sure.
who I'm talking with. I'm with comedian, writer, podcaster, push-up superstar.
True.
And storyteller. You've heard it from the Moth. Is it the Moth podcast or just the Moth?
It is a Moth podcast, but it's called the Moth
Okay.
Story Hour on the radio.
Woo!
And then I think it's just the Moth podcast. Yeah.
Ophira Eisenberg,
Oh, hi.
everybody. That's good.
As we just go into the minutia of what people have named their stuff.
I like it. I'm always curious about like the names of people's projects. Yeah, I think they're fun. Moth is does that stand for something?
Well, it's like based on a story that their founder used to live on St. Simon's Island, which is in Georgia, and
cool.
has this used to like hang out with a bunch of friends, and they would all tell stories to each other on the porch into the late hours, and the moths would be drawn to the lights of the porch.
Sounds like a day before TikTok. Because no one does it anymore. They'll all just be scrolling and, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, before we had names for all these things.
Yeah.
People just hung out.
Do you think we're done with, like, the last great American, like...
Novel?
Yeah. Because everyone's just, like, scrolling now.
Too long.
Too long.
Yeah. I mean, when's the last time you've read more than one paragraph?
I read books.
I know, I do too. But how much do you read on your phone? Do you read a phone?
No,
like,
I need a hardcover book.
So
I'm old
do
school. I like it. I like it. Or it doesn't have to be hardcover or soft.
It can be soft.
I have a Patreon.
Trade. Yeah.
And we have a book club on our Patreon.
God.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, I love that. So what are you reading?
Well, I read this John Ronson book called Lost at Sea. It's a book of short essays. He's like an investigative reporter.
Ooh.
And so I read two of his books recently, and I really liked them. So I read one of his books, I really liked it, so I got another one.
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction. I like nonfiction.
Okay.
Yeah, because I like documentaries. It's like my favorite kind of film to watch. Wow, look at all these kids.
This is like, there's a huge amount of children.
It's a school day. Oh, it's a school thing, probably.
Well, it's the end of school. I have a kid in school, and I'll tell you right now, he was like, as of today, there's no more homework. I was like, there's not, like,
that's good.
Wait a second, there's more school, but they've just decided no more learning?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
The core's met. The core has been met. Is it core? Is that still a thing?
I don't know, man. It seems like nothing's a thing.
All right.
No one's learning shit.
Well, where'd you grow up? Down in the city, right?
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Dang.
Yeah, baby.
I've been there.
No.
Yeah?
Why?
I did the laughing stop.
Yeah?
The laugh stop?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I did the laugh stop. Fun club.
The place where laughs stop.
Wait, it's the laugh shop? What is the club? Is it the laughing stop?
It's supposed to be the last. It's supposed to be a pun on the last stop.
The laugh stop.
But it's bad to. I mean, there's a problem with that name where it's like, any critic would be like, oh, this is the place where the laughs stop.
Oh yeah,
right?
that's bad.
Right? You're just like setting yourself up.
Well, that goes again back to like the name thing.
Exactly.
I like a good pun though. I didn't realize it was like a pun on the last stop, the laugh stop.
There
but
is
it makes sense.
barely a comedy club name out there that isn't a pun.
I like them all. Yeah. Trying to think of my favorite.
I'll tell you my favorite.
Please.
Which is not a pun, but it's just bizarre. It's Rooster T. Feathers.
Yeah, in San Francisco.
That's right.
Was that a pun on something, or is that you said it's not a pun? But what does that mean then?
I can't quite figure it out. Is it because like the rubber chicken? Like that's what my brain went to, like the rubber chicken as a comedy prop, and then but Rooster T.
You know what's funny is the next club next to Roosters is called Cobb's. I'm like, what is that?
What are we doing?
Cobb's. C-O-B-B-S.
C-O-B-B-S.
Weird. San Francisco's got in Wisconsin, where I'm from, in Milwaukee, there's a new club called the Laughing Tap.
Laughing Tap?
Because
Heard good things.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun. You should do it.
All right.
Because it's like tap, like a beer tap.
Yep.
So that makes sense.
Ha 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 ha.
It's funny.
The more you drink, the more you laugh.
That's what they say.
You know what? Speaking of doing stand-up, recently I found this thing from doing in New York. If your listeners, watchers don't know, you can do multiple sets a night.
Yeah. The only reason to pay this rent is to do more than one spot a night.
If you leave the house, you better do like 4 spots.
Yeah.
So I You know, I like a early crowd because they're not drunk yet.
Oh, I do too.
And they can be a little smart.
Yeah, yep.
And then I like a really late crowd because those people are trash. Like, those are like kind of the true partiers, and they're just fun.
Yeah.
They're a good time. But it literally the mainstream time that you want, like the 8 to 10 p.m. crowd.
8 to 10?
8 to 10?
That's good.
They're supposed to be the best, but sometimes I feel like those are the most distracted people.
Yeah, I think a 7 p.m.
7 a.m.
7 p.m. show.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
And now you do a little bit longer form. Some of your jokes are like, you know, storytelling.
Oh my God, those are my favorites to do, and yet the hardest.
I like them so much too. And before they start to drink, they have longer attention spans.
100%.
So they're able to really get into it.
100%.
I like that. So I wanted to talk to you about your storytelling, but first let's go over how you got started in the business. You want to take a left?
Yeah,
we
I
can
was
go
just gonna
left.
get away from
We're in Brooklyn.
the sun.
McCarran Park.
Yeah, baby.
And I've only been here like 3 times, and you said the same. Were you kidding?
No.
Oh, okay. I filmed a video here that went kind of
Skate park?
viral. Yeah, at the skate park here, where I wore an Evel Knievel jumpsuit, and then I had a mini bike, and I pretended I was gonna jump off like the ramps, but I lit my helmet on fire.
No.
And then I went down the ramp and just collapsed. It was a lot of setup for very little payoff, which kind of is my comedy style. Like.
So wait a second, did you just douse the helmet in lighter fluid?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds highly dangerous.
I've done it, you know. Yeah, it's fine.
This guy, as we say,
Hey,
this guy.
Content. I'll do anything
This
for
guy.
anything for content and views. I need that in my life. Okay, so Calgary. Did you know the
Calgary.
Hart family, the wrestlers?
Sure did.
Did you really?
Well, I didn't know them, but I saw them.
You would see them
they
around?
would be everywhere. Well, yeah, because
That's so
their
cool.
family funded sports for kids
Uh-huh.
and just sports places, sports venues. Like they were.
That's so nice.
Unbelievably philanthropic.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I was just looking at these weeds. It looks
It's
actual like weed, doesn't that look like weed?
This is like what we now call, you know, now we're just like the native plants.
The native, yeah, they're
The
just
native plants we tried. No, they're weeds.
they're weed, but it
They-
looks like marijuana, a little slightly.
Many things do. You know, actually, I will tell you, feels like a story from the past. In Calgary, Alberta, Canada, my
You can just say Calgary, right?
I don't know.
Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Why are you making it hard?
because when you say Calgary, people just do this like weird thing with their forehead, like they're trying to search for it.
That's true.
In the map.
Okay. All right.
And then they're like, Idaho.
Banff.
Banff. It's right
Banff.
near Banff.
Yep.
So it wasn't my brother, but my brother's friends, they were like 4 years older than me. So they noticed that the library plants were in good sun and well watered. So they planted
I love this.
weed in the library plants of the school library.
Oh wow.
And
for how long did this charade?
a very like
Last.
you know, the thing about weeds,
Yeah.
any weed grows quick. Ideal circumstances, those things are germinated and seeding. Sure.
All right.
In like it could be 5 days. They already.
Wow.
So I think it lasted like 2 weeks.
Oh, that's enough.
And then there was a bulletin back in, like, if you watch old stories, in movies about school, they would have announcements in the morning where they would go over the loudspeaker and tell you what's going on and all the problems.
Oh yes, I love that part of school. I love that. I remember getting every Thursday, the grade school I would go to would send home like a bulletin for my parents to look at about the comings up.
What's going on?
What's going on in the school and who's in trouble. And then my dad became the principal, so we didn't have to.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I loved it.
Okay.
In my high school, it was fun.
In your high school?
Yeah, sophomore, junior, senior year, my dad was the big cheese. And
Did he take care of you?
I mean, he didn't really. I mean, he did in a way, but it was also just like the teachers there were then just super nice to me. You know, like it was like oh, all of a sudden I can get away with murder here.
No. Oh,
little nepotism.
Ideal.
It wasn't like Hunter Biden, but it was a little
Okay.
little taste of what it could be like. But I would say like my grades didn't change. They were like
Not
C's.
even a little.
Oh, but he did put me in special ed, which was very helpful.
Okay.
Because I really needed that.
I will tell you that, you know, I don't know why I come across someone smart, I guess, or whatever. Maybe it's just the brown hair. Occasionally I wear glasses.
Sure.
And so everyone always assumes I was an A student. Let me tell you something right now, everyone.
Ooh.
Solid B.
Oh, B's are good.
Solid B.
B's are good.
I had to work so hard for an A-.
Oh yeah, I had to
kidding
work.
me?
I had a friend in school, and he was like to the point in which like if he got an A-, his like parents would be upset.
Yep.
And I'm
I know those
like,
people.
if I got an A-, my parents would be like, "We're taking you out for dinner." I'd be like, "Oh."
Oh yeah, I
please."
would get a prize.
Oh yeah.
So guess what? I didn't get a lot of prizes.
No, I didn't get a lot of prizes either, and I got even detention. I mean, like I was not a trouble kid, but I was not the best student.
I was much more interested in everything else that had nothing to do with school.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
I was like active. Don't get me wrong.
So I was
out there.
I remember a parent-teacher conference before my dad was there, I think, and I would like read up on like these pop star magazines.
Yeah.
Magazines with like, you know, all the boy bands and all the pop stars. I mean, I was just really into that. And they were like, well, you know, like he reads a lot of this stuff, but he really should read about this stuff, like stuff with substance. But here I am 20 years later, and I'm hanging out with these pop stars now, and it's part of my life. So
and have a book club.
And I have a book club.
So jokes on you.
Yeah.
You want to go on a path?
Let's do it. Let's do a path.
Let's go on a path.
Okay. So when did the comedy bug bite you? Or how did this
little,
start out?
A little late, and I'm just gonna say, I'm not justifying late, but I honestly didn't think stand-up was a thing.
Oh, okay.
You know, like I didn't know.
Growing up in Canada, I didn't have much TV.
I had TV, but I did not see.
Teasing.
I didn't really see. Honestly, I didn't see women.
Oh, I'm sure.
I didn't see women. It was like Joan Rivers, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And Kathy Griffin a little bit.
I like both of them.
But I also didn't consume a ton of like stand-up.
Sure.
So I wasn't aware of all the people.
You almost had to seek it out, would you say, in that area in that time?
Yeah, I never saw it live.
Yeah.
I remember my friend when I was, like we were finally drinking age in Alberta's 18.
Yeah. Ooh,
okay, so
fun.
we were 18. She was like, "Do you want to go to a comedy club?" And I was like, "A comedy club? Like that's a terrible place, isn't it?"
Oh.
And we went, and it was in the era that it was a terrible place.
Oh, it's like what made it terrible?
It was just like, everyone, I mean, I guess that still exists. Super shock comedy.
Yeah,
Definitely like all about like really attacking people in the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Like really, and just like, there was nothing.
Not smart.
It was
Wasn't
not smart.
humor.
It was not inviting. It was
Right.
for a bunch of like dudes who worked on trucks all day to like order 17,000 Molsons.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, man, that's right, get them.
Mm-hmm.
You had to get them.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Super
good.
racist, super homophobic.
Oh yeah.
Really sexist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much the opposite of what most comedy is now, right?
I mean, I think you can still find.
Depending on who you're talking about.
But yeah. But so I was like, what is this? Definitely not my space.
No.
But then I moved to, I finished university, college, whatever you want to call it.
What'd you study there?
Oh, cultural anthropology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, smart
Yeah,
job.
Yeah. For a B student, that's impressive.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. And then I didn't know what I was doing. And I thought I'd probably go back for a master's.
Wow.
Because once you start in these things,
It's fun
your
to keep
choices
getting
are
into
just
debt.
like, I mean, like, what are you going to do? Just keep going until you become an academic. And I've got some academics in my family, so I was like, that's what you do.
Very cool.
And then basically I moved to Vancouver, and I was just working
Love
dumb
Vancouver.
jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, just working dumb jobs.
All right.
Bagel shop here, restaurant there.
Uh-huh.
I worked at Kinkos, the copy place.
Oh yeah, I remember Kinkos.
Yeah.
What a fun name. Kinkos. Hey, you want something printed? Just go down to Kinkos.
Yeah, I know, like a demonic clown that will photocopy your stuff.
Yeah, and then FedEx kind of got in there. They kind of combined it.
So this was
It's
back
like
when
a Taco Bell Pizza Hut combo.
I mean, this is like a while ago. So this is back when Kinkos had a computer section because it was the idea that like maybe people were traveling and they wanted to go sit on a computer, or maybe you didn't have a printer.
Right.
And so you needed,
Do you have a printer at your apartment?
I do, and I love it.
You know what? I do too, and it's so
love
fun.
it.
It's so fun.
But it's also not for nothing. It's great when you have a kid because you can just print off like games. Like we can make games.
Yeah, and you don't even have to have a kid to print off games. You can still just do that.
You can.
Printers don't ask what you're doing it for.
So, but also, I don't know. Like as an independent freelancer, I feel like I still get very old school contracts and documents from people for dumb shows that I can't turn into a PDF.
Let's go to the sidewalk here. I don't like that.
Blah blah. So yes, I have a printer and I love it.
Me too. I love it.
Love it.
So comedy.
So anyway, so finally, after being in Vancouver, I volunteered at the comedy festival in Vancouver, and all the other people volunteering, like showing people to their seats, were amateur stand-up comics.
Oh, that's fun.
And they were like, "You should like come to this Thursday night
open mic."
Open mic.
There you go.
The open mic, and so I went, I watched, and I was like, "Huh," and it was very welcoming. Something I will never say about stand-up. That was the last time it was welcoming.
You don't think it is now, even in like
better.
New York?
Oh my God, no,
it's
good. Much better.
I feel like everyone, like there's competition.
Sure.
But it's all individual.
Good.
Yeah, you got to just do your work.
Do your work.
Mark Norman, I was with him the other day, and he told me that Jerry Seinfeld told him, or he heard this from Jerry Seinfeld quote, that comedians make their money during the day, like that's when they're doing their writing and stuff, but they pick up their checks at night.
Oh my God, I love that.
I like that too. I don't really love Jerry, but I like that quote.
I love the idea of a check.
Yeah, at night. Yeah, checks are nice.
Nice check.
So you started doing these open mics and you just kind of built it from there?
Yeah, so it was a pretty small scene in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And there was really only one club at the time.
Ooh.
And so it had this little, it was very insular.
Yuck Yucks?
It was actually called the Punchline.
Oh.
Yeah, and then Yuck Yucks. Yuck Yucks was like, I can't even, like, I think it did exist, but nobody went to it.
Well, there might have been.
And then it kind of had its whole, then it sort of overtook.
Maybe Yuck Yucks wasn't open in Vancouver. There's two in Vancouver now, though, right?
There's two in Vancouver now. Yeah, they opened one during, I think, like, in an old casino that was made for expo. Anyways.
That's cool.
I didn't even know about Yuck Yucks when I started.
Yeah,
so I had no idea. So yeah, I just kind of did a bunch of shows in that scene, and it was welcoming, and people were, I mean, it was like totally lots of women, lots of people that identified in all kinds of different ways, different ages.
I like it.
So I didn't even think of all of these things that feel so much more intense now.
Right. That's crazy.
So it felt totally free, very artistic.
Nice. Very fun.
It's not like I was making money, but I did get paid quickly.
Yeah, well, that's
because
good.
it was such a small scene.
Was it like an alty scene?
It felt alty.
Yeah.
Now that I look back.
Yeah.
It felt very alty.
Okay.
And you know, because it was Vancouver, I do remember that there was an open mic nights, and like Robin Williams dropped by a few times.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
An open mic?
At an open mic.
Wow, good for him. You know, sometimes I don't think people understand is like.
I mean, they called it New Talent Night, just to be clear.
Yeah, but like it's one of those things where like you need to keep doing it.
Oh yeah.
You know, like Louis took a year and a half off or something, and I've heard from other people like he's, you know, it's not pretty getting back into it.
Well, it's. I mean, I say this to people all the time because I have friends that are non-coms, and
civilians.
They literally ask me, why do you have to do it so much?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're like, hey, do you want to go out on Friday night? And I'm like, man, that's my time to make some money.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've literally been asked, why do you do it so much? And which is the most, honestly, degrading question. I'm like, what? But I always say it's like literally going to the, like you want to run a marathon?
Yeah.
You can't just work out twice a month.
Right. You got to put the reps in.
You got to, in order to stay good or to stay not scared.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the longest I've gone without getting up has been like maybe a week. I'd have to look though.
I would say in the gazillion years that I've been doing this, the longest is 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was, I noticed it.
Did you?
Oh yeah. The one upshot is sometimes you forget the way you have honed these jokes so hard that when you come back to it, you say it in a different way, and you're like, that was the way it was supposed to go the whole time, but I got so married.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
So sometimes it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air.
It is nice to take a step back sometimes, or at least stop doing a bit you've been doing for a while and then come
Shelve
back to it
and
later.
come back to it.
So smart. So when did like you become a storyteller?
So I was doing stand-up in Toronto. I moved to Toronto to do stand-up, and then I started writing kind of longer form,
Like,
personal stuff, and I really didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of like the solo show thing was happening, but that also just seemed very different. And then I moved to New York, and I saw Mark Maron had a one-man show at a space called Jerusalem Syndrome, and I went. So there was all these people with one. I saw that one, but then all these people had one-person shows. All of these stand-ups.
Yeah.
So I was going to see them all, and I was like, oh, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then my friend who works in production in New York said, there's something called the Moth that I think you would like. Because storytelling in stand-up, even if it was super funny, was not happening. The vibe was super joke. Like joke.
Gotta have those laughs per minute.
Yeah, and it was all about like who your character is, but in just tight little bits. No, I felt like nobody did storytelling. It was seen as...
Was this like, when was this, like 2000s?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So then the Moth, so I went to this Moth show that was just, it wasn't even a radio show yet. I think it was just beginning to be a podcast, but that's when people were like, podcasts? What, just like, you just plug a microphone into a computer and talk to yourself? Good luck at that being a thing.
Right.
And it was like, I loved it, and it was short form, right? 10 minutes, 5 minutes, personal story. And it was kind of an open mic, story slam, where they pick people out of a hat. And I did one. It wasn't that great, but it went well enough that then I was like, oh, now I have another thing.
Do you remember what like your first story was about?
Yeah, I do.
Can you tell me? You don't have to tell me the story, but just like.
Well, I mean, technically the first story that I wrote that then became the first Moth main stage story was about it was a darker story with some humor in it, but I was in a really bad car accident when I was 8 years old, and I almost died.
Oh, wow.
And my friend did die.
Oh, my God.
Yes. So.
And she was also 8?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And so, and because of that accident, like I wasn't supposed to live, so I have this huge scar in my stomach from them ripping me open because
You still have the scar?
Oh my God, it's like huge, yeah.
Wow.
I got a tracheotomy scar. I got this one that goes...
I would never have known.
Oh yeah, I know.
Wow.
I walk amongst you undetected.
Oh, wow.
So I had like broken ribs, and they lacerated my liver, and I don't have a spleen, and they punctured my lungs. And so I was in really bad shape.
Yeah.
And so they put me back together.
Yeah.
And so I told the story about that, and really about that when I had a lot of dips. This is hindsight, of course. When you're 8 years old, you cannot see what's going on. You're just kind of moving forward. And so my dad told me when I got out of the hospital, that he would buy me whatever I wanted. And I was so transfixed on this idea. What could I, wow, I just didn't have a family that bought stuff all the time. So I really was like, a television for my room, right? That's what I wanted. This is before laptops. Or the Barbie dream house.
Okay.
And I remember my older sister said, you're gonna have TVs, and that's part of your life forever. Go for the Barbie dream house. So, and the reason that he said that, by the way, I think was his way of trying to give an 8-year-old a reason to fight and to live. Yeah. Yeah. So then when I did finally go home from the hospital, the Barbie dream house was there, and it was this huge box. And because of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, this Mattel product that I'd seen in commercials wasn't available, so they had to write to the factory in California to get it.
Oh my God.
But they did, and
That's unbelievable.
It was so big and cool, and I don't know, in my mind it cost $1,000, probably $100.
No, I mean, $100 in 2000 is still, I mean, no, not in 2000, but in, when you were 8, it's probably 200, at least $200.
I mean, probably was like $500. And I played with that thing for years.
Oh,
Probably
wow.
too long. Probably too long.
Well, that's okay. I mean, that's it. Probably had such meaning to you. You kind of earned it.
I used to
in a
get
way.
up in the morning and play with it. I would come home at lunch from school, I'd play with it.
Yeah.
I mean, all the time. I had lots of Barbies. My mom was a seamstress, and she made clothes for all my Barbies.
For the like little dresses and stuff.
Oh yeah, the
that's
coolest
cute.
stuff, fur hats and all this
Oh, wow.
really cool stuff. And for whatever reason, it's funny, the memory of a kid, it had planters with plastic plants that you would put in, and one of the plastic plant packages had a dead cockroach in it.
Oh.
Clearly, ideal circumstances happening at that Mattel factory.
Yeah, that's wild. Oh my
and
God.
I'd never seen a cockroach before because Canada.
Oh, right. I didn't know there's no cockroaches in Canada.
Not in Calgary.
All right.
There were. I mean, I think there are. Anyways, doesn't matter. But there were. I've never seen it, and I was so fascinated by this cockroach.
Did you play with it?
I did.
Oh,
my
God.
my mother and father. My mother grew up in Holland. My dad grew up in Israel, and
Wow.
they were like, "It's a cockroach." They knew what a cockroach was.
That's awesome.
We're going by the craziest amount of children
I love
right
it.
now.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
These kids are having a field day.
They are. I love
literally a field day.
last week of school vibes for sure.
So I got it. And I told funny stories because I also I slept around a lot, and so I had tons of stories as a woman, not as a child.
No, yeah.
I don't even know what I'm saying. So, anyways, I had lots of stories about sleeping around.
Wow.
And so the first time I did a Moth story slam, I did not talk about the car accident. I did a fun story about. I took a year abroad after high school and went to Australia.
Oh, that's cool.
And had all these adventures with messing around, and I cut off all my hair and
Yes,
whatever.
this is an infamous story of yours, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I know this one. How do you find the humor, the jokes in such a sad, dark story about the car accident? How do you find humor
the levity?
in that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you might say this. You might say, I actually had an old boyfriend that would say this. He would always say, "There's only two things funny in the entire world, and they're topics of it's revolving around sex and death."
Okay.
I think he missed farts personally.
Yeah, farts are funny. I love it. I always giggle a little fart.
I think I could make a living if I just had a lot of fart jokes. Better
Sure.
living. But no, I looked at it, and sometimes you just have to do the gallows humor.
Yeah.
Sometimes you also just have to remind yourself what you're talking. When you talk about a story where you're almost dead,
Right.
the audience is looking at you going, "Well, she's here,
Yeah.
so it's going to be okay."
Yeah.
And actually trying to find a joke in it shows them that you are okay.
Yeah. Oh God.
And so that you have moved past it
Okay.
enough. So it relaxes your audience.
I guess
so they can listen to it more. So I like the dark humor. I like the gallows humor. There's also, you get into if you really get into the mind of who you might have been as a kid, I think sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
You can find funny things because kids have no hindsight.
That's true.
So
yeah.
then you look at it from the
Yeah.
immediate perspective, and there's usually some humor there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
of just
really
the
nice.
immediacy of discovering something. Yeah,
Wow.
because I feel like everything, and as a kid too, you're very literal. At least I was.
Sure.
Yeah, most kids are very literal.
Yeah, I think so. I think I probably was as well. What to you makes a good story? I'm sure you see a lot of storytellers in New York because it's such a popular medium now to be a storyteller.
Yes.
And you probably see a lot of people making a lot of mistakes. So what makes a good story? And what are some of the mistakes you see a lot of people making that you're no, don't do that?
I think and I made this mistake too, but the number one mistake is ego. It always is, my friend. But all I mean by that is I think there's a great desire when you look on something that happened to you to reframe it like you are the best, you're the hero,
Right.
and you are cool.
Yeah.
And that doesn't resonate.
People
with
are
anyone.
afraid to make themselves look less than
or the truth.
Right.
The truth of it. That you were not your best self. That you actually were the worst version of yourself.
Right.
Or that you were jealous or angry or envious or
Interesting.
made dumb choices or did not shine or it wasn't the best, it was just okay. Like, and I think when people tap into that, that's when everyone goes, that's me. That's humanity, right? Humanity
much more relatable. Yeah.
Flawed, but I think there's this feeling of like it's sort of, we all learn in school, if you remember that, like the way a story should go, rising action, climax. And so you want to be a hero.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to leave their story a hero.
Right.
But you know what? It's okay. It's like, and not you. Some stories you don't leave a hero, or it doesn't have to be that big. You can just leave a little bit better. Right? So
Yeah,
I think that it's just masking, like everyone wants to be like, it's a little rewrite, little revisionist history. And then, saying that about, I like structure.
Okay.
So I
You like a 1 act, 2 act, 3 act kind of thing? Or?
I like a beginning, middle, and end.
Sure.
So all we have to do with that is that you have to like really be invested in a story with what, as they say, what's at stake for you. So if it's just like you want to tell me a story about, I don't know, like a first date, you either have to tell me like something about that first date. Don't try to cram all the themes.
Right.
Like pick one out. So was this about like, all I want to do is not fail on this first date? Or is it all I want to do is impress this person on the first date? Or is it like all I want to do is make it through this first date?
Right.
Or all I want to do is make sure this person sees me on a first date? But you need like one, don't cram it all in. Find one thing you're trying to do.
Right.
And hang, like you're allowed to tell 17 stories about the same incident.
Right.
But you should pick one thing that was meaningful to you in that moment and hang the story around.
Okay. That's hard to do because you don't know which avenue to go, like which way to go sometimes. And you might have to try one way and see if that works and try another way, right?
And why not? And why not try?
Right.
But also, as my friend always says, but Ophira, that's the craft.
Right.
But I'm like, but I don't know.
Who's this friend?
Yeah, all the people I've met in the story.
Okay.
But it is like, that's another tendency that I see that often, where someone goes up to tell a story and they just want to cram their entire life into 5 minutes.
Right.
It's like, no. Yeah. And I think it's, let me think who said this. I think Vonnegut said it, but you know how quotes by famous writers and whatever, it's like, is it Oscar Wilde? Is it Winston Churchill? Is it?
Tell me about it.
But I think this is Vonnegut. Said, great one. Great for storytelling. Always start as close to the end as possible.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But you don't want, if that's also true with videos, like on the internet. You don't, you kind of, people will scroll away if they don't think the payoff's gonna happen right away.
Yeah. So sometimes I start if I feel like I have the luxury of writing, like time, I'll start with the end scene. And that might not be how I end up telling the story later. Right. But I'll start with the end scene and then right back to that. Okay. To try to make it shorter. Okay. Instead of like, instead of being like, when I was 4 years old, if this story takes place when I'm 35, let's not start off.
Right.
Let's just get to like the day before.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah, the day of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like it when people start in the action.
Me too.
I like it when someone's like, so I'm walking down, just right into the action.
Yeah, it also kind of respects the audience's time a little bit too, because you're not giving them all this unneeded information.
Yes. And writers call that, like when there's just too much preamble, they call it throat clearing. Like they're just like, I'm just exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I love like one-man shows, one person shows. And I've had my own. I went to Edinburgh with mine, and it's been really fun. And I think I've written like 2 or 3 one-man shows that I've done in New York. And I love them. I would always go see Mike Daisey.
Yes, that was someone else I saw when I first moved here.
And then he had a little controversy because it came to be that some of his stories were fabricated about like the Foxconn. Apple and China.
That's right. It was a big problem it was because he framed it as the truth.
Right.
Like hardcore journalism.
Right. Yeah.
And then later he was like, well, maybe not.
Yeah, so someone did like a deep dive and was like,
From This American Life.
Right. Now, are you friends with Mike? Do you know Mike?
I do know Mike, yeah.
Do you think he's recovered from that, or do you think because part of the book, the John Ronson book, another one of them the first one I read was called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed," and they have a chapter about Mike, and about how he went through this, this public shaming, and then how he got out of it.
It's so interesting because that again, time has moved so quickly in the way that we look at facts and no one would care now.
Right.
I will just say that right now. No one would give two craps about it now.
Right.
I mean, it's almost a heroic tale of a moment in time where people were like, wait a second, this isn't true.
Yeah.
Now it would just be glossed over. And if someone said, this has come up in comedy a lot recently.
Yeah.
Where different comedians have thrown stuff up that seems to have a journalistic, factual quality about it based on news and real incidents. And then later they go, oh no, this is my manipulation of these events for the point of stand-up.
What do they call it? It's like something truth. I forget what.
Convenient?
Yeah, maybe convenient truth. I forget but yeah. It's...
So anyways, I really think that no one would care now. And I think he did recover. However, at that certain point, did he recover fully? Because what happened, if you want to just think of something like a jet plane, it was shot down.
Yeah.
And I think he's flying again.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's that high.
No, yeah. I think,
Yeah, the rocket launch has been canceled.
Yeah,
still.
I remember Brian Williams, the news anchor, also had a thing happen where...
Oh my God, again, that seems so gentle in the past.
I know, it does, right? So I don't know if people remember, but he said he was in Iraq or something and on a helicopter, which he was, but he said they were taking fire and they weren't.
Yep.
But I'm sure he's been on other vessels where they may have been taking fire. It's just like one of those things.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah, no one cares. Yeah, that's so funny.
But I mean, I think most stories that first of all, I think stories, if you say this was an actual news item, it probably should be an actual news item. I do think that's just integrity, but what do I know?
Right, sure.
Talk about something that is ridiculous.
Right.
How dare I?
Right.
But I do, someone once said to me about storytelling, no one's going to hear a story about your fifth favorite song, which is just to say, if you're going to throw something out there, it's important to you, it has to be the first.
Yeah, sure.
And if it's not the first, you might have to elevate it. If you're just this story, you might have to elevate it.
Yeah.
Or it makes sense of why it was still important.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get all fired up talking about that.
I love it. I also saw, I'm trying to think of the other one-man shows, of course, Colin Quinn.
Oh, great. Yep.
Do you ever see Ghetto Clown?
No.
John, what's his last name? I was going to say Lithgow, but no, that's not it. John Leguizamo.
Oh, yes. No, I've never.
He has a ton of one-man shows.
Oh, my God, that is true.
Awesome.
I've read a few of his because I used to have a couple. I used to have because everything's been left in some city in a box.
Yeah, sure.
But a bunch of his collected shows and excerpts of performance.
I love this stuff. And now, of course, there's Mike Birbiglia.
Mike Birbiglia's done a ton.
You've got Neil Brennan's crushing it. So
Jackie
many.
Novak obviously went huge with hers.
Yep. So many. They're so fun.
So I feel so the solo show thing, I feel like when I came to New York, that was a big deal. And then I think only Mike Birbiglia and a couple other people were still doing it, but it died. And it was almost mocked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was people would they would bend down on one knee and be like, I'm doing my solo show.
Ah, I see. Yeah. Well, they became a little maybe too serious. Yeah, a little too full of themselves. It's hard when you take yourself too seriously.
Right. And now we're back in that.
I also like those cabaret shows, a Bridget Everett type show. I think those are really fun.
There's Laura Benanti has one out right now that supposedly is stupendous.
Really? Where at Joe's Pub?
No, it's at that Audible theater
Oh, okay, okay.
in New York.
Right by the cellar.
But she did do it at Joe's Pub. I think she started it there and then moved it recently.
All right.
Right by the cellar.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. It's a good time to come to New York and see some storytelling, see some stand-up comedy.
And it's actually still like unbelievably less expensive than a Broadway ticket.
Yeah.
It's in the affordable range.
Yeah, yeah, and they're just as good, just as talented. It's a fun time.
Good time.
A lot less production.
Yeah, you feel like the intimacy of getting something real.
I saw Judy Gold's one
Yes,
woman
that
show.
was great.
And yeah, I kind of had a part in that.
You did?
Well, I was part of the reason why she got canceled a little bit.
What?
Well, she I don't know if I
Okay.
should talk about this on the internet.
You can edit it
But
later.
no, I mean I was running her socials and then I posted a video and it was like a little out of context and she got some heat for this video I posted.
Oh.
So she had me take the video down or something.
Ah.
But it was a big part of her one woman show was the backlash from a certain video
Right.
that I posted. But to be fair,
Good for you, man.
I mean, I don't know, don't say good for me. I felt bad.
You're providing some content.
Yeah, I felt bad, but it was
Yes, of course. Of course.
you know, I was just clipping up her show and posting it on the internet.
This is
But-
so funny. I mean, you know, whatever. Also, anytime anyone reacts to any of my stuff negatively,
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
I don't have anything that's highly controversial.
No.
But
And she didn't either. It was just out of context.
it's just that's what happens.
Yeah.
People take it out of context
Yeah,
quickly.
and people forget that she's at a comedy club joking. It's
Well,
like
man.
it's like she's joking.
How are we so literal? I
I
just thought
know.
I said little kids were literal. We're
I
literal,
know.
too.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
All right, Ophira, where can people find you?
Oh my God, you can find me at Ophira E on everything.
Ophira E.
Ophirae.
Love
Why
it.
not?
Love it. Uh-oh, we're gonna get tagged.
Oh yeah, we gotta
wait.
stop because there's bikes coming
You're
by,
good.
everybody.
This is so fun.
Yay!
We did it. Talkie-walkie.
Love it.
Love it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and or watch another one. Watch another video. Could be fun. I don't know. Could be cool. You're already this far. You're